What's up, everybody? So, it's official. Summit County, Utah is on lockdown until May 1st. We have our shelter-in-place orders, and therefore, it's time to work on our shelters. But since we are going to be in the home, I thought it would be kind of fun to talk about the history of lawns and tell a little bit of a story. So, let's roll that intro.
What's up, everybody?
So I think if I'm really going to tell this story and do it properly, it's going to require some serious visual aids, and we're going to need to do some time traveling again. So I don't really have a whole lot in the way of like visual aids or pictures, but I mean, let's just say, let's go back to this point in time. Absolutely beautiful, right? I mean, come on, that is gorgeous. So here's the thing. When we go back in time and we start looking at the history of lawns, we go back into medieval times, because the lords and ladies of the land, the people who had the money, the ones who basically ran everything, had these massive sprawling estates and these just beautiful grounds. And as a status symbol, they were able to have these not manicured to today's standards, but very much manicured open spaces, green open spaces of turf that didn't have any crops growing out of it, and that was a huge deal. So that lawn space was absolute status. So the maintenance on that was done via, gardeners and basically the farmhands and people who were around there, plus grazing livestock like sheep would actually go out and kind of keep those spaces manicured and beautiful. And from a distance, again, these aren't like high performance turf zones like for golf or anything like that. It was just this beautiful sprawling grass landscapes. So this whole concept of having it be like a sign of wealth and a sign of status carried over for centuries and centuries. So this whole idea of these big green grass open spaces started to encourage some other things like bowling on the lawn, or games, essentially just playing games out there, golf, all of this other stuff started to turn into these being outdoors and utilizing that grass space for more fun. Now, later, moving up into maybe 60 or 70 years ago, there's a whole kind of interesting history of this place called Levittown, and you guys should take a look at the history of that. But it was basically this first suburb where lawns were commonplace. It was such a piece of what they were selling there to have this patch of grass that this whole thing took off, and all of a sudden these cookie cutter suburbs that were out there, these zero lot line places, or just suburbia, burst forth, and everybody had a lawn, which is pretty cool and a little crazy when you really think about it. So here we are at this point in history. We are now in the 21st century. We're all taking care of grass. We've got our own space. This is our postage stamp. We own it. We care for it. It's ours. And what's wild is to think about how many of those ours spaces there are. Because right now, Around 80% of all the homes in the United States have lawns, and this is now a $40 billion industry, which is crazy. That leads into its own issues and problems, and that's something that we can talk about here for a little bit now as well. So this is the thing to look at now. So with all of these lawns and landscapes around the country that we've got under care, we now have the biggest single crop under irrigation. It is far more than any other farmland and food producing area in the United States, and that's just under turf care. There's somewhere around like 2 billion man hours spent just mowing grass at the moment right now annually, and that's pretty significant. So when you think about it in terms of impact and environmental impact, lawns do a lot. And now I'm not taking a track of this is a bad thing. I want to make sure everybody knows that, because obviously I'm in the grass business and I think it's really super important for people to have that. But I think that there's certain aspects that need to be taken a look at really, really carefully. And so when we are using that much water, we're also using a significant amount of fertilizer, we're using a significant amount of chemicals. All of us are doing just this little tiny piece that add up to this massive pie. And there are pieces, and if you go back and look through these videos that I've done and throughout my channel, I'm always talking about how you can use less, and have an absolutely incredible and impeccable lawn that you're super proud of without overdoing it with water, or without overdoing it with fertilizer, or overdoing it with chemical. You can start to work and build up your soil conditions in such a way that these are not just pounding the ground all the time. So now, 21st century lawns, right? We know what we want. We know that there's this beauty. We know that there's still this sort of status factor, right? There's this thing about having that absolute gorgeous lawn. But there's other things about it that I think people really need to pay attention to. So as we do get into that, stronger rooting, stronger soil, more organic matter, all of those things that we talk about over here, all the things that I've shown you in my own personal lawn, there are great environmental benefits that happen. That is a filter system in a big way. And so water sifting through there from rain and anything else is just going to move and clean and go through the soil and get back into the water table. So it's imperative that we are very careful and we're following labels and doing things properly when we are out applying any sort of chemical or fertilizer or whatever. The big thing about it is that lawns are a carbon sink, and they are constantly absorbing atmospheric carbon and putting it down into the soil. They're showing you in the way that grass grows, and it is a physical representation of the air and the atmosphere around us. The way that grass is growing, it is air incarnate, right? Like that is what a plant is. It is carbon in there, and it is converted from the air to grow that. You've got a plant that's 45% carbon, 45% oxygen, and 6% hydrogen, and the rest is everything else. So this is literally made up of sunlight and air and water physically right in front of you, and that's pretty damn cool. So I wanted to keep this one just short and fun. Now that I'm basically stuck at home, not going to be traveling, hopefully going to get out into nature a little bit, but keep my social distance. I think that that's really important, and it's good. We have quite a few cases here in Summit County, and it's a small space, so it's good to really watch that. So I'm in the same boat with everybody else. I'm here. I'm homeschooling my kids, single dadding it, doing the whole thing, working from home, and honestly, it's fantastic. I wish it were under better circumstances, and everybody out there, I'm in it with you. So for the time being, let's get through this and get out onto the lawn as soon as possible, all right? I'll talk to you guys real soon. Down in the hole, fully under house arrest.